Have you ever found yourself wondering why the men you trust sometimes fall short of the perfect image you built in your mind? Why the promises, the sweet words, the hopeful beginnings don't always turn into the love and respect you dreamed of? This question isn't just about disappointments. It's about a deep, unspoken truth that many women learn too late. Men are not perfect mirrors reflecting the ideals we hold. They are flawed humans, shaped by their own fears, mistakes, and limitations. This realization can feel like a crushing blow at first, but it is also the doorway to a stronger, wiser kind of love and self-respect. You deserve to know this truth because it will save you heartache and confusion. It will help you stop blaming yourself when things don't go as expected and instead give you the power to see clearly what you are really dealing with. When you accept that men will never fully live up to the perfect intentions you hope for, you free yourself from impossible standards and learn to love with eyes wide open. This kind of love is brave. It acknowledges reality, respects boundaries, and refuses to settle for illusions. Many women step into relationships with the hope that the man will transform into the partner they need. This hope isn't wrong. It's natural and beautiful. But what often gets overlooked is how deeply ingrained human flaws are, especially in men, whose emotional wiring and social conditioning make them less likely to meet those expectations perfectly. This doesn't mean they are bad or unworthy. It means they are human. They come with a history of pain, confusion, and habits they might not even fully understand themselves. Recognizing this isn't about lowering your standards, it's about raising your awareness. Imagine how different it would feel to approach love without the weight of expecting perfection. Instead of disappointment, there could be understanding. Instead of confusion, clarity. When you learn this early, you protect your heart. You become less vulnerable to heartbreak and more open to authentic connection. You can see a man's flaws without losing sight of his potential, and you can see your own worth without shrinking to cover those flaws. This truth also invites you to be courageous. It challenges you to step away from fairy tales and face reality bravely. You don't have to settle for less than respect, kindness, and honesty. But you also don't have to expect someone else to fill every gap inside you. Knowing men's imperfections helps you take responsibility for your own happiness first. It teaches you to build your life on solid ground, not on fragile hopes. Stay with this journey because each harsh truth that follows will unlock a deeper understanding of men and relationships. It will guide you to protect your heart, set clear boundaries, and build stronger, healthier connections. More importantly, it will inspire you to reclaim your power so you never again lose yourself chasing what isn't meant to complete you. The path ahead is tough but rewarding because the more you know, the stronger and freer you become. This is not just about men. It's about the courage to love yourself fiercely and live with uncompromising truth. Many women long for emotional closeness, craving a partner who shares feelings openly and deeply. Yet, the truth is often harsh. Emotional availability is not a given for many men. This reality is not a reflection of their love or worth, but a result of deep societal programming and internal struggles few speak about. Men are raised to guard their vulnerability, to hide their emotions behind walls of strength, pride, and silence. This does not mean they lack feelings, far from it, but that expressing those feelings openly is a battle they fight daily. Understanding this opens a new door for compassion and clarity. It teaches you that when a man seems distant or emotionally closed off, it is not because he doesn't care, but because fear and conditioning hold him captive. This fear of vulnerability is tied to a survival instinct wired from childhood, a belief that showing emotions means weakness, rejection, or failure. This belief does not vanish overnight. It lingers, shaping how men relate to themselves and to others, especially the women they love. Knowing this, you are called to respond with both strength and empathy, to recognize the walls and patiently allow space for them to lower, if they ever will. Your heart is worthy of being seen and understood, but it cannot be your sole responsibility to break down those barriers. Emotional availability is a gift, not a demand. Learning this protects your spirit from weariness and disappointment. It frees you from the exhausting cycle of chasing feelings that might never be fully offered. Instead, you learn to appreciate what is real in the moment, to seek connection where it exists, and to hold firm to your own emotional truth. This knowledge invites you to be brave in your communication, to create safe spaces without losing your sense of self. You don't have to shrink or silence your own needs to coax a man's emotions out of hiding. Instead, you stand strong, making clear what you need while honoring his struggle. This balance is delicate but vital. It empowers you to love without losing yourself and challenges him to face his fears, not for you, but for himself. When emotional availability is limited, it can feel like a personal rejection. But it is essential to separate his internal battle from your worth. His silence or guardedness is not a measure of your value. It is a reflection of his own unhealed wounds and unresolved fears. You deserve a love that respects your feelings, but you also deserve to recognize when the love you seek cannot fully meet you. This awareness is a powerful tool for setting boundaries and protecting your heart. Holding on to hope that a man will change his emotional habits can be a double-edged sword. Real change requires inner work and courage on his part, not just your desire. This truth teaches you to value your time and energy. It calls you to walk away when the emotional gap is too wide to bridge, not out of bitterness, but out of respect for yourself. In learning this truth, you reclaim your power. You learn that your emotional fulfillment does not depend on another's readiness to feel, but on your courage to demand honesty, respect, and connection. You grow stronger, wiser, and more deeply connected to your own heart. This strength becomes a beacon, attracting those who can meet you fully and inspiring you to never settle for less than you deserve. Words can be comforting, but when it comes to truly understanding a man's heart, actions matter far more. Yet even actions can be confusing, sometimes speaking louder, other times whispering a language that's difficult to interpret. This gap between words and deeds is not accidental or malicious. It is a reflection of how differently men and women communicate, perceive, and process emotions. Knowing this truth can change the way you approach relationships, saving you from endless frustration and helping you tune into a deeper truth beyond surface appearances. Men are often taught to show strength through doing rather than talking. Their love, loyalty, and commitment frequently manifest in practical ways, fixing what's broken, providing security, protecting space, rather than through verbal affirmations or emotional expressions. This doesn't mean their words aren't meaningful, but often their actions carry the real weight of their feelings. Learning to recognize this subtle language of love invites a new kind of patience and clarity, freeing you from expecting verbal proof as the only sign of devotion. At the same time, actions can be inconsistent or unclear. Men may struggle to align their words with their behaviors, not out of deceit, but because of internal conflicts, fears, or a lack of emotional awareness. This mismatch can cause confusion and doubt, but it also highlights the importance of looking beneath the surface. When you learn to read between the lines, to observe patterns rather than isolated moments, you gain wisdom. You develop a sharper intuition, a guide that protects you from false hope and misplaced trust. This truth challenges you to trust yourself above all else. Your intuition is a powerful tool that speaks the language of truth when words and actions seem tangled. It urges you to question, to observe, to reflect without becoming trapped in excuses or denial. When you listen to this inner voice, you gain clarity about what you truly deserve and what is simply a mirage. This clarity becomes your armor, guarding you from disappointment and helping you navigate relationships with strength and grace. Recognizing this gap between words and actions is not an invitation to cynicism, but a call to realism. It empowers you to set firm boundaries, to demand consistency, and to refuse to settle for anything less than honesty. This is where courage meets wisdom, knowing that love is not just about what is said, but what is consistently shown. This knowledge compels you to respect yourself enough to walk away from relationships where actions do not match your needs or values. When you anchor yourself in this truth, you stop chasing empty promises or smooth talk that feels good but lacks substance. You begin to honor your own worth and time. You learn to celebrate the men whose deeds speak clearly, whose love is steady and true, while releasing those whose words are empty echoes. This discernment is not cold or harsh. It is the ultimate act of self-love. In embracing this understanding, you move closer to relationships rooted in authenticity and trust. You open the door to a love that honors your soul, where actions and words blend into a harmonious promise of respect and care. This is not a small victory, it is the foundation of all true connection. Here, you reclaim your power and step into a life where your heart is met with genuine action, not just hopeful words. Fear shapes much of a man's behavior, especially the fear of rejection. This fear is often hidden beneath layers of pride, silence, or even stubbornness. It influences how men interact, how they express themselves, and how they protect their hearts from pain. Understanding this fear is essential, not to excuse hurtful behavior, but to see the complexity beneath it. Recognizing that rejection wounds men deeply and differently can change how you respond to their distance or withdrawal. It invites you to meet them with courage and compassion without losing your own strength. Men's fear of rejection often causes them to build walls before anyone can get close enough to hurt them. These walls may look like indifference or coldness, but inside they mask vulnerability and a desperate need for acceptance. This creates a paradox. The harder a man tries to protect himself, the more isolated he becomes. For a woman, this can feel like being shut out or unloved, but knowing this truth empowers you not to take it personally. His defense mechanisms are about his pain, not your value. This fear also triggers pride, a shield that tells a man to hide weakness and avoid admitting when he is hurt or afraid. Pride can make it difficult for men to apologize, to say I'm struggling, or to ask for help. This makes emotional intimacy a steep mountain to climb. When a man pushes you away or refuses to open up, it is often his fear speaking louder than his love. You deserve to be loved fully, but it's important to see when fear, not rejection, is the real barrier. You must protect your heart without losing sight of this truth. You can hold space for his fear while honoring your needs. This means setting boundaries that keep you safe from emotional neglect or abuse, even as you acknowledge the struggle beneath. It calls for strength, not to fix him, but to decide what you will accept and love. Your courage lies in knowing when to stay patient and when to walk away. This understanding also demands that you resist the temptation to take responsibility for his fear. You are not his healer or his emotional crutch. The work of facing rejection, breaking down walls, and overcoming pride must come from within him. Trying to force or rush this process only drains your energy and clouds your clarity. True growth requires his willingness and self-awareness, not just your love or effort. Knowing this harsh truth means you can love more wisely. You learn to distinguish between love that builds you up and love that tears you down under the weight of fear. It equips you to seek relationships where fear is acknowledged, but not allowed to dominate or destroy connection. This wisdom protects you from endless cycles of hurt and hope. In embracing this truth, you become stronger, more grounded in your worth. You stand tall with compassion for others and uncompromising respect for yourself. This balance is rare and powerful. It lights the way to relationships built on honesty, courage, and genuine connection. Your freedom and peace begin here, with the courage to see fear clearly and the strength to love without losing yourself. Independence is a fierce, beautiful force within you, a light that calls for respect, admiration, and freedom. Yet, for many men, this independence can feel like a challenge, a disruption to the familiar roles they have been taught to expect and fulfill. This truth is difficult but vital to understand. Men often struggle not simply because they are insecure, but because your strength questions the very identity they have long held. This is not a flaw in you, it is a reflection of how deeply culture and conditioning shape the male psyche. Men are wired to see themselves as providers, protectors, and leaders. When a woman claims her independence, it can feel like a direct challenge to these roles. This does not mean men want to control or diminish you, but that they can feel unmoored, unsure of how to relate to a partner who does not fit the traditional mold. Recognizing this opens a pathway of empathy, allowing you to hold your power without needing to diminish his. It invites a balance, a new way of relating that honors both your freedom and his need for identity. This tension often leads to conflict, misunderstanding, and pain. Men may pull away, feel threatened, or resist your autonomy because it shakes the foundation of what they believe makes them valuable. But this is not a reason to shrink or compromise your truth. Instead, it is a call to courage, to stand firm in your independence while navigating these waters with patience and wisdom. Your independence is your strength, not a weapon or a threat. Understanding this dynamic empowers you to communicate with clarity and confidence. You can express your needs for freedom and space without igniting fear or defensiveness. You can challenge old patterns gently, refusing to settle for diminished power while inviting growth and new understanding. This requires emotional intelligence, resilience, and unshakable self-respect. It is a high form of love to love freely, fully, and fearlessly without sacrificing who you are. This truth also teaches you about boundaries. Independence demands boundaries that protect your autonomy and well-being. These boundaries are not walls but bridges, clear lines that define what you will accept and what you will not. When you set these boundaries, you create a space where both partners can evolve. You invite respect and mutual growth, not control or submission. This balance is fragile and requires vigilance, but it is the foundation of healthy, lasting connection. You may face resistance, confusion, or even rejection as you claim your independence. This is painful but necessary. It tests your commitment to yourself and your willingness to demand relationships that honor your full self. You deserve love that sees your independence as a gift, not a threat. You deserve a partner who stands beside you, not in your shadow or against your light. This truth frees you from guilt and doubt. It releases you from the trap of trying to be smaller or quieter to keep peace. Your independence is not something to apologize for. It is your power. Embrace it fiercely, knowing that this strength will attract those who respect and cherish you deeply. This is the foundation of authentic love, built on freedom, respect, and mutual empowerment. Here, your soul can soar, unchained, and unapologetically whole. Trust is fragile. It is the invisible thread that holds any relationship together, yet it can unravel in silence. For many women, trust is something given freely at the start, a hopeful leap into connection and safety. But for men, trust is often a slow, cautious process shaped by past wounds, disappointments, and the fear of vulnerability. This difference is not about loyalty or love, but about the deep psychological barriers that men build to protect themselves. Understanding this is crucial. It helps you recognize why trust cannot be rushed or demanded, only earned and nurtured over time. Men's trust often hinges on actions far more than words or promises. It is built through consistency, reliability, and respect. When these are absent, suspicion grows, sometimes quietly, sometimes explosively. This is not a sign of weakness or mistrust in you personally, but a survival mechanism rooted in fear. Knowing this prepares you to approach trust with patience and clarity. It allows you to protect your heart from premature exposure and disappointment, while creating space for genuine connection to grow. This truth invites you to be both patient and discerning. Patience means understanding that trust requires time, and discernment means recognizing when the time has passed without real progress. It is not weakness to let go when trust remains broken. It is strength. Holding on to someone who cannot earn your trust slowly erodes your self-respect and drains your energy. Your well-being depends on knowing the difference between temporary setbacks and unbridgeable gaps. Trust is also about boundaries. It demands clear limits around what you will accept and what you will not. When those boundaries are violated, trust diminishes. Rebuilding it requires sincere effort, transparency, and accountability from both partners. You have every right to insist on this process. Your emotional safety is paramount, and it is your responsibility to protect it. Trust does not grow in chaos or neglect. It flourishes in environments of honesty and respect. When trust is broken repeatedly, it's not just a relationship that suffers, but your own sense of worth. You may begin to doubt your judgment, question your value, or lose faith in love itself. This internal damage is the most dangerous cost of misplaced trust. Recognizing this helps you reclaim your power by making wiser choices about who deserves your heart. Your trust is precious. Do not give it lightly, and do not waste it on those unwilling to honor it. This understanding frees you from guilt or shame if you must walk away from a relationship where trust cannot be restored. Ending something that no longer feels safe is not failure. It is self-respect in action. It is a powerful statement that you value yourself too much to live in fear or uncertainty. This decision is a vital step toward healing and growth. When you embrace this truth, you open the door to relationships where trust is genuine and mutual. You attract those who understand the sacredness of trust and are willing to earn it day by day. You build a foundation not on fragile promises but on solid, unwavering respect. Here, love can flourish freely and your heart can rest in safety and peace. Control is an illusion that many men cling to, not out of malice but out of a deep-seated fear of chaos and uncertainty. This need to control stems from a vulnerability few dare to admit, the fear of losing power, relevance, or self-identity. When control becomes a driving force, It distorts connection and suffocates love. Understanding this truth is essential. It shows you why some men may resist your autonomy, try to dictate terms, or impose limits that feel confining. This behavior is not about love, but about fear masquerading as strength. Recognizing this dynamic frees you from taking control issues personally. You are not the cause of their need to dominate, nor can you fix it through compliance or resistance. The desire to control is often a silent scream for security, but it damages relationships by eroding trust and mutual respect. This realization arms you with clarity to set firm boundaries without guilt. You learn that your freedom and dignity are non-negotiable, and any attempt to diminish them is a red flag, not a challenge to be tolerated. The psychology behind control reveals that it is an attempt to manage internal chaos by external domination. Men who struggle with this often feel powerless in unseen areas of their lives, and controlling others becomes a misguided way to regain a sense of order. This understanding invites compassion without surrendering your strength. It reminds you that true power lies not in control over others, but in mastering oneself and honoring the autonomy of those around you. You deserve relationships where power is shared, not hoarded, where respect is mutual and freedom is celebrated. When you stand firm against control, you claim your rightful place as an equal partner, not a subordinate or an object to be managed. This stance requires courage and unwavering self-respect. It demands that you reject manipulation cloaked in love or protection, and instead insist on genuine partnership based on equality and trust. Control also silences the voice of the heart. It creates an environment where fear dominates and authentic expression is stifled. In such spaces, love withers, replaced by tension and resentment. Knowing this truth encourages you to seek connections where vulnerability is met with safety, and where power dynamics do not diminish your spirit. This pursuit is not selfish, it is necessary for your emotional survival and growth. When you refuse to tolerate control disguised as care, you reclaim your power to define the terms of your relationships. You create space for love that uplifts rather than confines. This boundary becomes a beacon, attracting those capable of healthy partnership and repelling those who seek control over connection. Embracing this truth transforms your understanding of strength. Real strength is found in freedom, yours and theirs, and in the courage to walk away when freedom is denied. It is the power to choose respect, equality, and love without compromise. This knowledge liberates you from fear and opens the door to relationships where both partners thrive in balance, trust, and genuine connection. Here, your heart is free to expand and your soul free to soar. Men often carry a burden few recognize, a pressure to succeed that weighs heavily on their identity and worth. This relentless demand to prove themselves to be providers, achievers, or protectors shapes how they show up in relationships. It creates a tension where failure feels like weakness and vulnerability becomes a risk too great to take. This truth reveals why many men hesitate to share their struggles, why they sometimes retreat into silence or frustration instead of opening their hearts. Understanding this pressure is key to unlocking deeper empathy and clarity in your connection. This burden is not a choice, but a cultural imprint ingrained from an early age. Men learn that their value is tied to accomplishment and control, making any sign of struggle feel like a threat to their core. This creates a cycle of hidden pain. Success may bring approval, but it rarely brings relief. When you see this, you realize that beneath the surface of strength lies a complex mix of hope, fear, and exhaustion. Your compassion becomes a powerful force that can hold space for their hidden battles without enabling avoidance. Knowing this truth helps you set realistic expectations, not of perfection, but of genuine effort and honesty. It teaches you to appreciate moments when a man dares to show vulnerability, even if imperfectly. It reminds you that growth is messy and slow, and that courage looks different for everyone. You learn to celebrate progress rather than perfection, recognizing that true strength comes from facing struggle, not hiding it. This understanding also warns against the temptation to fix or rescue. You are not responsible for carrying the weight of his expectations or healing his wounds. Your role is to stand beside him with clear boundaries, not to absorb his burdens as your own. When you maintain this balance, you protect your heart from exhaustion and resentment while encouraging him to take ownership of his growth. This balance is a quiet but profound act of love. The pressure to succeed can cause men to prioritize external achievements over emotional connection. When work, status, or control dominate their attention, intimacy suffers. This distance is painful, but it is often a symptom of their internal struggle rather than a lack of care. Recognizing this truth invites patience and intentional communication. It calls you to express your needs clearly while understanding the forces pulling him away. This mutual awareness can create space for healing and deeper connection over time. You deserve a partner who strives not just for success, but for presence. Someone willing to face their fears, share their struggles, and invest in the relationship beyond performance or appearances. When you hold this standard, you honor your own worth and model what true partnership requires: authenticity, effort, and courage. This truth liberates you from unrealistic expectations and opens your heart to love rooted in reality. It strengthens your resolve to seek relationships where vulnerability is welcome and where both partners can grow together, not just succeed apart. Here lies the foundation of lasting connection, built not on perfection, but on courage, honesty, and mutual respect. Emotional expression is a battlefield for many men, shaped by years of conditioning that equate vulnerability with weakness. This harsh reality creates an invisible barrier that keeps true feelings locked away, hidden beneath layers of silence, anger, or distraction. Understanding this silence is essential, not as a rejection of love, but as a defense against a world that has often punished openness. When you grasp this, you gain insight into why emotional availability can feel like a rare gift, why genuine connection sometimes feels just out of reach. Men's struggle with emotional expression is not a lack of feeling, but a complex fear of being misunderstood, judged, or abandoned. This fear shapes their communication, leading them to protect themselves by limiting how much they reveal. For you, this means learning to read between the lines, not just hearing what is said, but sensing what remains unsaid. Your intuition becomes a vital tool, guiding you through the silence to the heart beneath. This is not easy, and it demands patience and strength. Recognizing this truth frees you from expecting men to meet emotional standards they may never have learned. It calls you to redefine what emotional connection looks like, finding ways to honor the small openings rather than waiting for grand gestures. Each moment of honesty, however brief or imperfect, is a victory. Celebrating these moments helps build trust and encourages deeper sharing over time. Your acceptance becomes a powerful invitation to vulnerability. At the same time, you must protect yourself from emotional neglect disguised as silence. Boundaries are crucial. They create a safe space for both of you to grow without sacrificing your emotional well-being. Knowing when to hold space and when to demand more is an act of courage. It is the recognition that your emotional health matters as much as his struggle. This balance preserves your strength and teaches that love requires both patience and insistence on respect. This truth also dismantles the myth that men do not feel deeply. Beneath the stoic exterior lies a rich, often turbulent emotional world yearning for understanding and acceptance. Your role is not to fix or force expression, but to create an environment where this world can emerge naturally. This requires sensitivity, resilience, and unwavering self-respect. It means valuing your own feelings while offering compassion to his. When you embrace this truth, you stop interpreting silence as rejection or lack of love. You see it as a barrier to be gently dismantled, not a wall to be shattered by force. This shift changes your approach to relationships profoundly. It transforms frustration into curiosity and impatience into empathy. You learn to navigate emotional distance with grace rather than despair. In this understanding, you reclaim your power to choose love that meets your emotional needs without denying his struggles. You seek partnerships where emotional expression is nurtured, not punished, where silence invites connection rather than division. Here, love becomes a shared journey toward healing and wholeness, a place where both hearts can unfold in trust and freedom. Pride can be both a fortress and a prison, shaping how men navigate relationships with profound consequences. It protects their sense of self, shielding fragile insecurities beneath a facade of strength. But pride also blocks growth, connection, and healing when it refuses to bend or admit fault. Understanding this duality is essential. It reveals why men may resist apologies, avoid difficult conversations, or dismiss your feelings, not from cruelty, but from a need to preserve dignity at all costs. This knowledge empowers you to see beyond surface resistance and meet them with patience and clarity. The weight of pride often stems from a fear of vulnerability, intertwined with the belief that showing weakness diminishes worth. This belief traps men in cycles of defensiveness, where admitting mistakes feels like losing ground. For you, this means learning to approach conflict with empathy, recognizing that their stubbornness is often a mask for deep fear. Your calm, steady presence becomes a catalyst for change, creating space where pride can soften without shame. This truth challenges you to balance compassion with firm boundaries. Compassion invites you to understand the roots of pride and resist reacting with anger or frustration. Firm boundaries remind you that respect is non-negotiable and that repeated disregard for your feelings must be addressed. You cannot nurture growth by excusing harmful patterns, nor can you demand change with harshness. Instead, you hold a space that encourages honesty while protecting your dignity. Pride also influences how men perceive success and failure within relationships. Admitting to struggles or relationship challenges can feel like personal defeat. This fear can lead to silence, withdrawal, or defensiveness when problems arise. Recognizing this allows you to reframe difficult moments, not as battles to be won or lost, but as opportunities for mutual growth. You learn to invite openness by modeling humility and vulnerability yourself, breaking the cycle of pride that isolates. You deserve a partner willing to meet you halfway, someone who values your voice and acknowledges their imperfections. When pride blocks this, it creates distance that can erode intimacy over time. Understanding this truth equips you to identify when pride becomes destructive rather than protective. It empowers you to demand honesty and respect, knowing that true strength lies in vulnerability and accountability. This awareness frees you from the burden of fixing or changing him. You are not responsible for dismantling pride, but you are responsible for choosing relationships that honor your worth. You can walk away from those who refuse growth, knowing that holding on to pride is not a sign of strength, but a barrier to love. Your courage lies in recognizing when to hold on and when to let go. When you embrace this truth, you create space for authentic connection, a place where pride does not suffocate love, but supports mutual respect and growth. You attract partners capable of humility and emotional honesty, and you cultivate relationships where both hearts can heal and expand. Here, pride becomes a foundation of dignity, not a wall that divides. In this balance, love thrives, grounded in courage, truth, and the freedom to be imperfect together. Many men struggle to fully understand the weight of emotional labor that women carry in relationships. This unseen work, managing feelings, navigating moods, remembering details, smoothing tensions, often falls disproportionately on women, quietly shaping the emotional climate of the partnership. Recognizing this reality is crucial. It reveals why exhaustion and frustration build over time when the effort is one-sided and unacknowledged. Knowing this truth empowers you to demand balance, respect, and shared responsibility, transforming the dynamic into one of genuine partnership rather than silent burden. Emotional labor is not a weakness or an obligation. It is a vital contribution to the health and harmony of any relationship. When men fail to see or participate in this work, it signals a lack of awareness or willingness to engage deeply. This disconnect creates distance and resentment, often masked by excuses or denial. For you, this means learning to name the imbalance clearly, without guilt or hesitation. Your feelings and efforts matter profoundly. They are not invisible or optional. They deserve recognition and reciprocity. Understanding the psychological impact of unequal emotional labor helps you reclaim your energy and voice. It reminds you that emotional caregiving is a two-way street requiring vulnerability, attentiveness, and accountability from both partners. When these qualities are missing on his side, your role is not to compensate endlessly, but to hold space for honest dialogue and change. This is an act of self-respect, not selfishness, that preserves your well-being and sets a new standard for intimacy. You deserve a relationship where emotional needs are met collaboratively, not by default. When both partners share the labor of emotional upkeep, love thrives in a space of mutual care and understanding. This balance nurtures resilience, deepens trust, and fosters authentic connection. It is not a burden to bear alone, but a shared commitment to each other's happiness and growth. This truth also challenges societal narratives that minimize women's emotional contributions or normalize their exhaustion. You are not required to sacrifice your peace or identity to keep a relationship afloat. Recognizing this liberates you from patterns of overgiving and under-receiving. It invites you to expect more from yourself and from those you choose to love. Setting clear boundaries around emotional labor protects your heart and promotes healthier dynamics. When emotional labor is fairly distributed, it empowers both partners to grow and evolve without losing themselves. It creates space for joy, spontaneity, and deep connection rather than depletion and duty. Knowing this truth strengthens your resolve to build relationships rooted in equality, respect, and shared emotional responsibility. This understanding fuels your courage to walk away from partnerships that demand too much without giving back. It frees you to seek connections where your emotional energy is cherished and balanced. Here, love is not a heavy weight, but a source of strength, nourishment, and freedom. A partnership where both hearts move forward together, equally seen and valued. Trust is the fragile foundation upon which every meaningful connection is built. Yet it is one of the most difficult truths to fully grasp when it comes to men. Trust does not come easily, and for many men, it is guarded fiercely behind walls constructed by past disappointments, fears, and insecurities. This guardedness is often mistaken for indifference or mistrust toward you, but it is in fact a reflection of their internal battles. Understanding this delicate truth is vital. It allows you to approach trust not as a given, but as a gift that must be earned, nurtured, and protected. Men's hesitance to fully open their hearts is not a rejection of love, but a survival mechanism. Trust once broken leaves scars that run deep, and the fear of being vulnerable again can silence even the strongest voice. Recognizing this teaches you patience and respect for the pace at which trust can be rebuilt. It reminds you that demanding trust too quickly or expecting immediate openness can push a man further away, reinforcing walls rather than dismantling them. Your power lies in creating a consistent, safe environment where trust can grow naturally, without pressure or judgment. This truth demands you honor your own boundaries as well. Trust is reciprocal. It cannot flourish if you compromise your needs or ignore red flags in the name of patience. Knowing when to hold firm and when to extend grace is a delicate balance that requires deep self-awareness and courage. Protecting your heart means recognizing when trust is being tested repeatedly without progress, and having the strength to walk away if necessary. You are worthy of trust that is given freely and respected fully, not earned through sacrifice or endless waiting. The psychology behind trust reveals that it is deeply tied to experiences of consistency and reliability. Men who have struggled with betrayal or neglect often struggle to believe in the permanence of connection. This knowledge encourages you to focus on steady actions rather than grand promises. Trust is built in the everyday moments of honesty, accountability, and mutual respect. Your commitment to these values becomes the soil from which trust can grow, transforming suspicion into confidence, fear into security. You deserve a partner who actively chooses to be trustworthy, who values your vulnerability and honors your truth. When trust is lacking, love cannot flourish. It becomes fragile and uncertain, subject to doubt and fear. Recognizing this truth empowers you to demand clarity and commitment, knowing that true love requires a foundation that is unshakable. Anything less is a risk to your peace and growth. This understanding frees you from illusions and false hope. It strengthens your resolve to cultivate relationships where trust is a living, breathing force, nurtured daily, respected deeply, and never taken for granted. Here, love becomes a sanctuary where both hearts feel safe, valued, and free to be fully themselves. In this sacred space, trust is not just an ideal, but a lived reality, guiding every step toward deeper connection and lasting transformation. Intimacy is often seen as the ultimate expression of love, yet for many men, it remains a terrain fraught with fear and misunderstanding. The deep connection women crave is often met with hesitation or avoidance, not out of lack of desire, but because intimacy demands vulnerability. a challenge that many men have not been taught to face. This reality can feel like a harsh truth, but embracing it opens a path to compassion and transformation. Understanding that intimacy is a process, not a state, empowers you to cultivate connection beyond surface-level interaction. Men's fear of intimacy often stems from past wounds, cultural conditioning, and the internalized belief that emotional exposure is dangerous. This creates a paradox where their longing for closeness clashes with a need to protect themselves. Recognizing this inner conflict allows you to approach intimacy with empathy rather than frustration. It invites patience and the willingness to meet hesitance with gentle encouragement rather than pressure or judgment. Your presence becomes a steady anchor in the uncertain waters of connection. True intimacy requires courage on both sides. It calls for honest communication, shared vulnerability, and mutual respect for boundaries. For you, this means creating a safe environment where both of you can express fears and desires without fear of rejection or ridicule. It demands that you honor your own needs and limits while inviting him to do the same. When intimacy is balanced in this way, it becomes a source of profound healing and growth rather than anxiety or conflict. This truth challenges the misconception that men are naturally less capable of intimacy. The reality is that many have simply never been shown how to navigate emotional closeness safely. Your role is not to fix this, but to encourage it by modeling authenticity and openness. Small acts of honesty and kindness lay the groundwork for deeper connection. Each shared feeling, no matter how vulnerable, builds trust and diminishes fear. This steady progress rewrites old narratives and creates new possibilities for love. You deserve a partner who actively seeks intimacy, who is willing to lean into discomfort for the sake of connection. When intimacy is avoided or denied, it signals a barrier that can erode love's foundation over time. Recognizing this empowers you to demand emotional availability and honesty, knowing that real intimacy cannot flourish without these elements. Your courage to hold this standard protects your heart and invites a higher quality of relationship. Understanding this truth frees you from accepting superficial connection or emotional distance as normal. It fuels your commitment to seek and build relationships where intimacy is a living, evolving bond, a space where both hearts are seen, heard, and deeply known. Here, love transcends mere proximity and becomes a shared journey of discovery, trust, and transformation. This is the power of intimacy realized, the ability to be wholly yourself and wholly loved in return. Control is a subtle force that often shapes how men engage in relationships, yet its presence can go unnoticed until it begins to erode trust and freedom. Many men grapple with the need to maintain control, not as an expression of strength, but as a response to deep-seated fears of vulnerability, uncertainty, and loss. Understanding this dynamic reveals why attempts to assert control can manifest as rigidity, resistance, or withdrawal. Recognizing this truth empowers you to see beyond surface behaviors and approach the need for control with clarity and compassion. This need for control is not about domination but survival. It is a way for men to create order in a world that often feels unpredictable and overwhelming. This instinct can clash with the natural flow of love, which demands flexibility, trust, and surrender. When control becomes a default mode, it stifles growth and suffocates connection. For you, this means learning to identify where control is rooted in fear rather than confidence, and how it impacts your ability to build a genuine partnership. Awareness of control's psychological roots offers a path to change. Control thrives on anxiety and uncertainty. When a man feels safe, his need to control diminishes. Your role is not to challenge control head-on, but to cultivate an environment where safety and trust reduce the impulse to dominate. This requires patience, firmness, and clear boundaries. You must protect your autonomy while offering reassurance that vulnerability is welcomed, not punished. You deserve a relationship where control is replaced by mutual respect and shared power. Control isolates, respect unites. When men release control, they open space for equality, collaboration, and deeper intimacy. This shift requires courage on both sides, to let go of fear and embrace trust. It challenges old patterns of dominance and submission and invites a partnership built on balance and freedom. This truth demands that you hold firm to your own sense of agency. Control in any form can quickly become manipulation if unchecked. Knowing your worth and maintaining your boundaries is essential to prevent being drawn into power struggles that drain your spirit. Your strength is in choosing relationships where your voice matters, where decisions are made together, and where freedom is honored. Recognizing the subtle ways control operates frees you from confusion and frustration. It clarifies when a relationship is healthy and when it is constricted by unspoken fears and insecurities. This clarity fuels your resolve to seek partnerships that honor your independence while nurturing connection. It strengthens your ability to communicate your needs and expect them to be met with respect. When control yields to respect, love transforms into a space of freedom and growth. Both partners are empowered to be themselves fully, contributing equally to the relationship's evolution. Here, love is not about holding tight, but about letting go, trusting that true strength lies in openness, balance, and the courage to embrace uncertainty together. This is the power of partnership realized. Two individuals united by choice, not control, walking forward hand in hand with trust and freedom.